Hello, welcome back to the next Backupmonster show. Uh, we'll change a little bit. I'm not saying about the images behind the scenes. Hopefully you enjoy it. It looks stunning. This is what my team made. But we changed the way how we will do the recording. Right now, we decided to make a shorter ones, like 20 minutes, and we'll have each guest divided into the 3 different episodes. So today we'll start with the first episode with our special guest, with the Demetrius Malbrough. Hello, Demetrius.
Hello, hello, hello. How are you,
Hello
Powell? Nice to
again.
be here.
I asked before the session, because we've been know each other for a while. I've been also one of the guests in Data Protection Gamble in the past. So I asked how to say about you. So you said host of the Data Protection Gamble, which is important. We spoke about it before. So 10 years of recording and talking about the data protection. But you also said you're a data protection veteran. How many years you need to be in the industry to call yourself self a veteran?
Well, you know what, with AI and all the skills that exist out there today, it really depends on how much time and effort you want to dedicate into learning that skill, right? So you really can't put a time on it, but I would have to say it would be at least the 10,000 hour rule, right? It's an old school way of thinking about it, but you have to put the time in regardless.
Hmm. Yeah, this is the old way, but it's really true not only in a sport but also in a business. You need to be consequent, persistent, and do the hard work to master the skill set. And so you're in a good place because both of us are working in industry for close for 2 decades at least.
Yeah.
So I'm guess both of us has a 50 years experience on the field. So the challenge is that we have actually 18 minutes to start to talk about the backup from the beginning. So imagine that we have somebody who is not in, let's say, knowledgeable or have an experience in a backup industry, but they would like to start it from the beginning. So what they should know about the backup industry, about the backup market, let's say if they're starting from the zero to the hero. So what should be your first take
Yeah,
here?
and you know what, that is a very great question to start off with, and where to start, right? It all starts with you and where you want to go and exactly what you would like to accomplish, because everyone's digital now, right? So you have cell phones, iPhones, Androids, laptops, iPods, computer, iPads. So everything is completely digital. And what happens if that laptop crashes? Or what happened if that major enterprise server crashes, right? Then it becomes a scramble. And so you really have to determine whether or not you are up for the challenge of recovering data, right? Because it's all about data. And some people say data is the new oil and it's the lifeblood of a company, but it's all about if you feel that you have the fortitude, the confidence, and also the persistence to dive deep into the beginning and the technology of how data actually works, right? And how the technologies around bringing data back or recovering data works. So I would say it really starts with you and whether or not you are up for the challenge to go find the information, go learn the information. It's out there. There's hundreds of YouTube videos. There are online classes literally for free, like Udemy.
Mhm.
And you have a large network of individuals out there like myself and also Powell as well that are on LinkedIn that you could reach out to also give you advice as well. So I would say the number one thing is it starts with you and identifying what you would like to focus on. And if this is a path that you would like to take, because there's a lot of attention out there, right? You have Instagram and social media and Twitter, and that begins to really take away the focus from young people today, I would say.
Hmm. And when you talk with the other consultants or the companies, Do you see that we have 2025? So let's say it's supposed to be, let's say naturally that everybody got the strategy related to the data protection or the backup and recovery market. You think you see a strategy is a common thing, or you need to build the awareness and say, hey, this is not a strategy. This is, let's say, not the whole plan. You think that most of the strategies are applied in nowadays companies?
Yeah, you know what? I really would say that it's really about sitting down and making sure that you do have a strategy, right? That you have a plan. And just from an enterprise perspective, making sure that it's a top-down approach and starting with the board, right?
Mhm.
And the CEO and the CIO. And nowadays, with things out there like ransomware, because it's now a cyber game, right? You have to make sure that they are all in line, and then they pull in all the troops, right? The guys on the ground, like your backup administrators, your system administrators, and then pull them into the planning aspect and the actual technical details of how are we going to protect this data? How are we going to detect the threats that are out there? And then most importantly, how are we going to recover that data? And then that's the number one key is being able to recover that data. And so having a strategy is definitely the number one thing that you really need in order to make sure that you are headed down the right path to number one, be able to, bring that business back online and to also maybe recover that accidentally deleted file.
But more you see, this is let's say the relationship and the our studying from the board members. So you see more discussions with the troops, like you said, with the specialists, administrators, or with the CIO, CEOs. I see that it's drastically changed since the last decade. Like you said,
Yeah,
thanks to the ransomware, and the board of members are more willing to have this kind of the conversation, and the backup stop to be, let's say, the boring thing. Just put the data somewhere and forget. So a little bit changing the landscape of the needs, and the need of the integration with the other software such as security platforms.
absolutely. And you know what, Paolo? It really feels like I'm not sure if you are a Black Mirror fan, right? Netflix, big series
Yeah,
that
yeah.
comes on.
Watch all of the episodes.
Yeah, it kind of feels like we're in a Black Mirror episode with technology right now. You have AI that's out there, and it's changing the game as to how hackers and cyber hackers actually gain access to try to get into different systems. But there's also a different component when it comes to just making sure that you're able to recover in case there is some type of ransomware event, because we're hearing about them every day, right? Almost every day we're hearing about a high profile breach or some data was encrypted or even exfiltrated. And you hear all these big stories, and then you see the whole geopolitical landscape of nation states attacking each other. This country is actually stealing our data. So it's really beginning to be kind of a worse nightmare that we're living in right now. And what we do as data protection experts and backup and recovery experts is help fight that fight to recover and make sure that the business can get up and running really quickly, right? So it depends on what those RTOs or recovery time objectives and RPOs, recovery point objectives, are, according to the business and the workloads that you're recovering. So yeah, we're in a Black Mirror episode right now, and hopefully you have the right solution in place to get out on the other side of this Black Mirror episode that we're living in 2025.
Mhm. You think the still the implementation and of 3-to-1 strategy, the 3-to-1 backups should be applied to all of the corporate strategies still?
You know what? I would say yes. Go back to your traditional methods, right? 3, 2, 1. actually came around from, I think it was the film industry. It was a guy who was a photographer who needed to make sure that he had multiple copies of the images that he was capturing. So making sure that you have three different copies on two different types of media and one off site. And even some of the larger enterprise backup and recovery vendors today go even further than that 3211, 32110, making sure that one copy is immutable and indelible, making sure that it's off site and that it's in the cloud.
Mhm.
So absolutely, I would say, always have multiple copies sitting in multiple locations and making sure that those are protected as well and that you can recover in some type of clean room as well. So just because you're backing that data up and you have an extra copy of it, can the cyber attackers actually get to that copy and encrypt that backup copy as well? So those are things that you really have to be aware of, you have to plan for, and to make sure that your technology or whichever cloud provider you're using, hopefully you're using Azure, that you have some type of locking mechanism or immutability mechanism, and also that you're utilizing some of the like role-based access control, as well, and MFA, to make sure that you just have that extra protection.
Yeah, yeah, I think this is a good space. You mentioned Azure, and it's also your role in Microsoft to to advise and build the business continuity base on the Azure cloud. You see the trend. It's more about the first copy or the secondary copy here, from the disaster recovery purposes. What is the trend that you see worldwide here?
You know what? The trend right now is really about having multiple copies in multiple regions, right? And being able
Okay.
to just have that redundancy that you need depending on your business requirements and depending on what those workloads are. For instance, if it's, let's say, Microsoft 365, and that you want to protect against those types of threats, and to make sure that you can recover SharePoint and also maybe Teams, right? You want to be able to recover Exchange or even individual emails and mailboxes as well. You want to make sure that you have the proper protection, because the hyperscalers, we are only responsible for providing you with the mechanisms and the systems to be able to back that data up and run that data. But of course, you as the actual data owner, you are responsible for your data and the protection of your data and the recovery of your data. So it's really just knowing exactly what that shared responsibility model is, and also, number one, having the conversations with your board and your top level executives to understand what's the most important applications in the environment, what's the frequency, and what is the priority of recovering that data, because everything can't be important, right? I know some of you think that all of my data is important, but you have to prioritize and sit down before something happens to write out, okay, what is that recovery plan? And are we going to use things like orchestration and automated recovery? So those are
Mhm.
some of the things that you really have to sit down and have conversations around and be super solid on knowing that you can, recover.
It's important, statement that you said that after 20 years of being in the industry, this question, what happens before, is this is a crucial, yes. And
Yes.
still what I see, not too many companies apply the strategies. So even if they have a strategy, they have a challenges to cope with this regular restoration procedures, or to update the recovery plan, so all the time remind what happened if. This is one of the key challenges these days, to cope with all of the changes from the industry. Data gravity, data lands on a different location all the time. You started with the laptops, we have a data center, so we have a cloud. That's why, for example, having the offsite copy, um, in for example, Azure or the other hyperscale with the geolocation,
Right.
georeplication option, it's from one side it's totally simple. So I love to have secondary copy in a cloud with the geolocation. Then we have at least three copies,
Right.
and understanding the need to coming back from a while and ask a question to your, let's say, troopers. This is what you said. Okay, guys, let's recover it. Everything works fine. No, 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 let's recover it. So we should I know it's additional time, and the effort to make it happen, but doesn't matter what type of the backup software you're running. It's not only about the software, but the other cases, the other problems, pitfalls that they can occur during the recovery process. So I would like to emphasize and align the statement that whatever vendor you are using today, hopefully most of you will use a store in the future, but if it's Cohesity, Rubrik, Veeam, Commvault, whatever you will find on a Magic Quadrant, Dell, etc., the statement still is the same. You need to be aware that the software, it's not enough, the hardware is not enough, people is not enough. You need to all the time, continuously testing, and having the test procedures in a place and update your uh, disaster recovery plan. One of my employees said that uh, every time you will give the updated recovery plan, the disaster recovery plan into the board, after you will give them the full copy, it's outdated because all the time everything is changing. So
Right.
this is
Yeah.
let's say, of course, uh, nobody will stay all the time and changing it, but we are living in a times that everything is so fast that we need to all the time remind that we need to do the recovery procedures. And I would like to
Right.
finalize this episode with this statement that think broader, think about the different layers, and keep in mind that applying the 3-2-1 rule, which is still one of the oldest philosophy right now. And remember that not choosing the software which is not having the millions of the different options, but the doing the proper job done in a space that you are required. So if you have Microsoft 365, look for the specialization companies in this industry. If you have a VMware, OpenStack right now, more and more customers looking for the alternative of VMware because of the Broadcom acquisition, seek for the companies who are specializing in here. And there are many good players in industry. And keep up and keep think about this offsite copy, because 20 years ago when I started the journey, the building the offsite copy was one of the key challenges because of the price. Right now, for example, using the Azure Blob, you can tremendously make it happen in a day or two with significant lowering the costs, because the blob storage do the job pretty well here. But we will discuss the metrics, all of the other features and the key challenges for the backup strategy in the next two episodes. So I would like to thank you for the first. If you could, do the summary from your side, I will be appreciated.
Yeah, so just overall to summarize, just number one most important thing is to, if you are starting off and you do want to get into the data protection industry, backup and recovery, number one, just identify whether or not this is something that you want to dedicate the time to, because it will require a lot of time and effort to completely understand exactly what's needed, the difference between what a backup is, the different types of backup strategies that are out there, how to recover. And I mean, the industry is moving very fast. But I know we're out of time as well. But overall, just to summarize, making sure that you are not getting caught up on the other side of this Black Mirror episode that we're in right now. Make sure that your enterprise, or even from a personal perspective, that you are making copies of your data and that you can recover that data, because something will go wrong. And we've seen that time and time again that it's just a matter of time before something goes wrong and you're faced with having to recover that data or you lose it. So definitely thank you for having me on. And I look forward to maybe answering questions on LinkedIn or even on YouTube and all the other platforms that this will be posted. So thanks for having me.
And keep remember that after you watching the Backupmonster show, just put into the Google data protection gumbo, and you will find the podcast that Demetrius is doing for the last decade. So I'm personally promoting it. It's a great job. So if you would like to seek also for the good content, no rush. Just put into the Google. And see you on the next episode, Demetrius, and we will more talk about the people versus technology, the weakest link in your backup strategy.
Thank you.
Have a good day. Bye bye.
All right.